Now there's many methods you can use to start, and I'm not going to go through them all now. I'm just going to show you the one that I use the most, which is the chain 2 or chain 3 method. And what that means is that you're going to be chaining 2 if you want to do single crochets in a circle and a round, or chain 3 if you want to do double crochets in a round. So what I do, if I know I'm going to be having a lot of stitches worked in that first chain, I'll pull up my loop just a little bit, just to give myself a little bit more space, and say I want to do double crochets. So I'm going to do that first chain, just kind of on the big side, and then I'll chain 2, which will count as my first double crochet. So essentially I just chained 3, but I made my first chain a little bit bigger because that's the one I'm going to be using. Now, the reason why you use chain 2 for double crochet is because a double crochet is two step ups is what I call it. So single crochet is 1 step up, and the double crochet is 2 steps up. So your chains are essentially giving you a step up. So another thing you want to do now that you have this bigger hole on the end is you want to make sure you work over your tail. So when you start to crochet, you want to make sure that you have that tail there. So when you yarn over, you'll double crochet over in your chain and over your tail. Now I'm going to bring mine back this way because I am right-handed, so I go this direction. And I'm just going to start double crocheting inside my first chain that I did. And typically it's anywhere from 6 to 12 stitches in the first stitch, usually. So the chain 2 will count as a stitch. So you want to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. Now what I do when I count my stitches in the round is I start from the last stitch that I just did and count my stitches backwards. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And then this is my chain. This is 12 with my chain 2. So that's also a way how you find your very first chain 2, because it will try to hide. Now go ahead and slip stitch in that beginning chain 2, and now you can pull your tail that you just crocheted over and tighten that hole, and you can pull your stitch, hold your stitches while you pull. And I also bring my tail up to the next row just to kind of hide it as I go. So we're doing double crochets, and like I told you before, you need a 2 step up. So I'm going to chain 2, and in that same stitch in the top of the chain 2 you'll put another double crochet, and that's an increase. You're going to be doing a lot of increases in the round, because as you go farther and farther out, if you don't add stitches, it's going to close up, and that's how you make hats. You get it to the width you want, and then just keep doing that same amount of stitches over and over and over again, and it's just going to close. It'll make a tunnel. So if you want a flat piece that's a circle, then every round you're going to have to increase somewhere. And there's a basic way that people do that, and that's what I'm going to be showing you in this video. So after you got your initial row here, you're going to be doubling those stitches. So if you have 12, then this row you're going to double it to 24, which means every stitch of this row will need to have 2 double crochets in it. And again, I'm just going to hide my tail, so I'm going to crochet over it as I go along. That way I don't have to come back later on and hide my tails. I always recommend, if someone's going to be wearing something of yours, that you should hide your tail with a tapestry needle, because it better ensures that it won't come loose later on. Not 100%, but it gives you more of a chance it won't happen. So I'm going to continue and put 2 double crochets in each stitch around, and it'll be pretty easy to see at the end of your row because you'll have that chain 2 right there. Okay, so when you get done with the end of your round, you want to count. You can count backwards. You increased in each stitch around. You had 12 here, so you should have 24 here. Count 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24. And to end the round, to help not get this so much of a space there, is that instead of increasing and the ending your row using the chain 2, you want to go into the first double crochet. So go into that very first double crochet and slip stitch. And that is just, it's going to help you be able to hide that space a little bit more. Now, we always want to begin with a single stitch because we want to end on an increase. That way it'll also help us and close that hole there in between. So for the very first stitch of this row, it'll be a single. And then the very next stitch, you'll want to put an increase. So 2 double crochets. Then the very next stitch, put a single. Then the very next stitch, you'll do an increase. And you'll continue this pattern all the way around. And remember, you should end on an increase, and you should also have 36 stitches. Okay, I've come to the end of my round, and now I have to do an increase, and you're going to do an increase here, and this is your chain 2 from the last row. You're going to, and then there's a stitch here on top of it where we, went over it to slip stitch inside the first double crochet instead of in it. So we can use this stitch now to finish our increase at the end of this row. So I'll put my last 2 in this stitch, and then you can count 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, 26, 28, 30, 32, 34, 36. This is 35, and the chain 2 is 36. We're skipping over it, but it doesn't mean we aren't using it, and we'll be using it just like we just did. Now again, we're going to skip over this chain 2 and slip stitch right in the beginning, right in the first double crochet. Then again, chain 2. So we're now on 1, 2, 3. You can easily see every round. This is 1, that's 2, this is 3. Nice to work with double crochets for that reason. So now, since we did 1 stitch in between our increases, this time we're going to be doing an increase, and then we'll have 2 single stitches. So it'll be an increase, and then it'll be a single stitch, and then an increase. So we never want to begin with an increase, so our chain 2 will count as our very first stitch, our first single stitch, and then in the same, I should say, let's do the next, because we're going to be replacing. So the chain 2 is in our first double crochet. That will count as our first stitch of the round. So in the next double crochet, we're going to put our second single stitch of the round. Then our third double crochet over, we're going to have our very first increase. So then now we need to do our 2 single stitches. So there's 1, the next stitch, put 2, and then we do our increase again, which is 2 double crochets in the same stitch. And we're going to keep repeating this for the row. We'll have an increase, a single stitch, an increase. So 2 double crochets, 1 double crochet, 1 double crochet, 2 double crochets. So your next 2 stitches will be a single double crochet here, a single double crochet here, and then an increase. Continue this all the way around, and then I'll show you how to end your round. Again, when you come to the end of your row, using this little stitch here in between, after, or I should say under your chain 2, we'll put our increase in that stitch, and then slip stitch in the first double crochet. And this is how you continue to increase over and over and over again. Next row, you would put 3 single stitches in between your increases, and then the row after that you would put 4 single stitches in between your increases. The next would be 5 single stitches for your increases, and so on and so forth. After a while, the dynamic may change, like just doing the stitches, you know, adding a stitch in between each increase every row won't help, and it will start doing one of two things. Let me back up. If your project is starting to curl in like this, it means that there's not enough yarn. You're not increasing enough. And if your material starts to like do this, then you have too much yarn in that spot. You know, if you can't lay the whole thing down and it's buckling up in one little area, you know you have too much yarn in that area. So you need to rip it out and then try to design something that may be, you know, using less stitches that round. It's pretty easy to design something in the round if you use those two methods. You're going to have to do a lot of ripping out until you can find a pattern that works. But that's the thing about designing. Every ply yarn that you use and every size yarn will make a difference. And everybody crochets differently. Some people crochet much tighter. Some people crochet much looser. So that also plays a part. So keep all those things in mind, and you should be able to create anything that you want in the round. I don't know if I kept this in the video earlier, but I had mentioned, like, when you're working in the round, if you want to make a hat, you can go around and around until you reach the width of the top of the head that you want, and then don't increase anymore. Just keep those number of stitches and just start putting like 1 double crochet in each stitch around. And if you do that, it's going to create a tunnel. It's going to create the tunnel of the hat. And then when it's long enough, then you can you know, make a small little border and then be done. So I hope this helps you be able to start to design your own working in the round.